Hey, what up, everybody? What up, everybody? It's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. It's another amazing episode of Financiation. I thoroughly enjoy going live with you guys and answering any questions that you may potentially have. Okay. If you're not familiar with this channel, Financiation, we teach you how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to build generational wealth, how to financially emancipate yourself from generational poverty. On this channel, everybody, I thoroughly enjoy giving you a six-figure MBA level worth of investing and financial knowledge for free here on YouTube. And the things that people typically spend hundreds of thousands of dollars learning in grad school, I give it to you for free here on Financiation. And as a guy who has an MBA and as a mechanical engineer who's taught finance for over 20 years, I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Okay. So once again, this is a live Q&A session. So by all means, please fire your questions towards me. Any question that you guys have, don't hesitate to ask them. And I thoroughly enjoy pushing the ministry, if you want to call it that, of financial literacy. Because what I've realized is this: when a man or a woman realizes essentially how to stack their paper, when they realize essentially how to build compound interest, they essentially realize the power of compound interest. When they realize what an index fund is, what a mutual fund is, when they realize what compound, when they realize essentially what matching your 401 ks, when they realize essentially how to start a business, when they realize the legal entities they can use to essentially create tax-free generational wealth, it literally changes the way they live their lives. Okay. And for that reason, everybody, I thoroughly enjoy doing what I do at Financiation and teaching people essentially how to build wealth. So yeah, so let's get started. Let's get started, okay? So I recently had a person reach out to me. Let's say they're lower middle class. Actually, I'll just flat out cut the chase. Actually, they're based off of what they make and what they tell them what they make. They are what we would consider poor in the United States of America because they make under $30,000 every year. This person is not lazy. They're not stupid. They're not hustling. They're basically essentially in a type of career where they don't make a lot of money. And as a result of that, they were asking me what are some of the mistakes that they see that people like them typically make kind of when they are essentially trying to build wealth, because this person kind of is at the point where they feel they kind of don't really have any hope. They're a little sad, they're a little hurt in regards to what they make, and they honestly don't really have a lot of hope. So I kind of was just having, as I was having my conversation with them, I was walking them through different things that I noticed that people typically in their socioeconomic status make, the kind of mistakes that they make that essentially keep them unfortunately poor. And the thing about it is like this, everybody. There's a difference between being broke and being poor. There have been times in my life, everyone, where I've had literally $19 in my name. I remember one time I actually was going to go on a date with somebody, and I had $17 in the bank. And what was crazy was that literally what I ended up doing was I just ended up cooking dinner for them, and we ended up watching a movie. So there have been times in my life, everyone, where literally I've been so broke where I have not been able to pay rent, where I've essentially not had gas money, I had to essentially walk to work. I've had situations where people have laughed at me because of the kind of cars that I drove, where I lived, and things like that. I have heard gunshots at night. I've actually seen police officers get shot directly in front of where I'm living, and yeah, I've had my experiences of living essentially in government or Section 8 housing. So I'm saying that to say this, everybody. It's not exactly where you start, it's how you finish. And just because you are in an environment where you don't have a lot of money, or you're in a situation where you've made some terrible financial choices and you also don't have money, that does not mean you need to stay there. And as a result of that, everyone, regardless of where you currently are, just keep this in mind. As long as you have a healthy mind and a healthy body, in capitalism, you can do better and you can essentially do things to essentially build your generational wealth. So once again, it's not how you start, it is how you finish. And being poor, everybody, is a lifestyle, but being broke is temporary. So as a result of that, just always keep that in mind. If you have $19 to your name and you can't even, and you're looking essentially at an ATM, and you can't even pull money out, don't worry about it, because if you are essentially building the right kind of steps, you can essentially build generational wealth and you can compound upon that. Okay. So the first major financial mistake that I know is essentially everybody that the poor and the lower middle class makes is that they have no emergency fund. So what exactly is an emergency fund? If you guys ever book a one-on-one session with me, the first thing we always talk about it essentially, if you have booked a one-on-one session with me, you know exactly where I'm going with this, is that we essentially go through your budget. And the reason why we go through your budget is because the idea essentially is that you need to know how much money you have going out, and you need to more importantly know how much money you have coming in. Because if you know how much money you have going out and you have it down to a penny, how much money you have coming in, from that point you can start to determine, okay, where am I spending too much money? Where am I spending not spending enough money? What am I doing to invest my money? And more important, what am I going to do to get out of the situation that I'm in? And you cannot do that if you do not have a budget. So as a result of that, The first thing we work on is having a budget. And when you get that budget, you can determine how much money you are spending per month. And from that money you are spending per month, you can determine what I like to call your emergency fund. Now, our good grandfatherly old guy with gray hair out in Tennessee, he says you should only have $1,000 emergency fund. I personally think that is extremely outdated because the typical and the average apartment in America, all of the United States of America, is roughly $1,700 per month. So unless you're living in the middle of bumble crap nowhere, $1,000 is not truly going to go too far. But I do agree with the sentiment of this. You need to know exactly how much money you want to have coming out so you can determine what a 3 to 6 month emergency fund is going to be. And if you're basically bringing home $3,000 a month and you're spending $2,000 a month, that means everybody that your 6 month emergency fund is going to be 3 times 2,000, which is $6,000. If you're spending $10,000 a month and you bring home $12,000 a month, that means your 3 month emergency fund is going to be 3 times 10,000, which is $30,000 a month. And what I always tell people is that no matter how much money you're making or how much bills you have to pay off for anything, always take a certain percentage of your income, regardless what it is, whether it's 2%, whether it's 5%, whether it's 25%, whatever it is, and throw that percentage every paycheck into a high interest account for your emergency fund. It does not matter how much bills you have to pay or how much debt you got to pay, or how much investment you have to do. Always make sure you are building up your emergency fund. I have had periods in my life where I've had over $100,000 worth of debt, whether it was student loans, whether it was stupid things that I should not have bought that I got myself into. And even in the height of those situations, I was still putting away about $300 to $500 every month for my emergency fund. And the reason why was because in the event I got injured or I got fired or I got laid off or I got sick or something like that, I needed to make sure that I had a quote unquote emergency buffer so I could essentially go 3 to 6 months and not have to worry about where my next paycheck was going to come from or whether I was going to be homeless or not. So always have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And one of the mistakes that I know is that people who are poor on the lower middle class, and if you're not familiar, if you live in the United States of America, you are considered poor if you make under $30,000 a year. If you are in this environment, make sure you still are putting away a certain nest egg every month into a high interest account that pays over 3% in an emergency fund. And the reason why I say 3% is for a very simple reason for anyone that does not know. Inflation every year has averaged anywhere from 2.75 to 3% over, like, let's say, the last 20 to 25 years. So, in other words, if you have your money in an investment that does not pay 3%, like a brick and mortar bank account like Bank of America, Chase Bank, and things like that, you are literally losing your money every second it is in there. So any account that you have, make sure you're putting it into a high interest account for your emergency funds. And for this emergency fund, as I said earlier, make sure that as you are investing into it, every time you get paid, I don't care if it's $100, $250, whatever it is, make sure you're just putting a certain percentage of your income into that emergency fund every paycheck. This is a non-negotiable. This is no matter what happens, come hell or high water, this is exactly what you were putting into your emergency fund, okay? Before I go any further, please support your content creators, everybody. Please make sure you are supporting us YouTubers out here because we are definitely putting our knowledge, our expertise, and we're putting essentially the things that you guys pay for free out here online. So please support your content creators. Once again, it's your boy Chris. You can hit that dollar sign below. $1, $2, $3, whatever it is, everybody. Make sure you support us content creators because we thoroughly enjoy giving you guys content. We thoroughly enjoy essentially helping you. And I know I personally thoroughly enjoy helping you guys build generational wealth. Okay. So have an emergency fund. That's what I want you guys to start off with. If you are more tech savvy, create a Microsoft Excel sheets. If you're more of an app type of person, there's different apps you can download to create a budget. If you are old school, you can literally take a sheet of paper and write it on engineering paper that has the squares and everything in it. But whatever it is, make sure you are having a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. 3 months is the minimum. 6 months is kind of, I would say, a good average, and 9 to 12 months is probably the best what you can get. And I personally would not advise you to get anything more than a 9 month emergency fund for one very simple reason. If you're keeping 15 or 20 or $30,000 in a brick and mortar account or in a bank account that's only paying you about 3% or 1.5%, you're losing money. At that point, you should probably start investing that money into a good growth stock index fund, into a ETF, the exchange traded fund that essentially matches the total stock market. Thank you, Esther Paul. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. That 199 goes a long way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But yeah, as I said earlier, if you are trying to invest, go to a total stock market index fund or a total stock market or a exchange traded fund that matches the total stock market, or a mutual fund or something like that that essentially matches the stock market or the S&P 500. Regardless of what you decide to put your money into, everybody, make sure you are doing this on a consistent basis. Okay. Next, the next major financial mistake that I see people in the poor and the lower middle class making is that they essentially rely on debt and credit cards for their daily living needs. Now, credit is one of those interesting things because it can literally drown you extremely quickly if you are not familiar with it. And I've seen this happen to lots of people. I've had situations in my life where I got seriously deep into credit cards and I had to do some extremely creative things to get out of that credit card debt. And to me, credit cards are one of the scabs of our society in North America because what they do is they essentially sell you a lifestyle that you cannot afford, and because all your peers around you are doing the exact same thing, which are also selling, living a lifestyle they cannot afford, it makes it seem normal to have 22% interest on $15,000 worth of debt, or it makes it seem normal that you are essentially paying thousands of dollars in interest rates every year because you cannot pay off your credit card debt every month. And this is one of those things that if I could really go back in time, I think about some of the most major financial mistakes that I made. Credit card debt was definitely one of the ones that was near the top, because if you find yourself in a situation where driving cars that you can't afford, you're dating women that you should not be dating, you're trying to buy expensive clothes so that you can have a certain image or a certain look, or you're in an environment where you essentially quote unquote have to use credit to live the kind of lifestyle that you think you need to live, and you're essentially trying to justify that crap, you are essentially going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be literally enslaved to debt. And the thing about credit card debts is this, everybody: the average credit card has an interest rate of about 20%. The average American owes anywhere from $7,000 to $7,500 every month in unpaid credit card bills. That means, as a nation, we are literally trillions of dollars into debt and into financial bondage for a system that essentially is loading us up with 20 to 22% interest every month. For comparison's sake, some of the best index funds, some of the best stocks, some of the best investors in the world very rarely can return over 12%. So if you are investing into, so if you are essentially in credit card debt, everybody, that means the amount of debt that you are getting is literally twice as much as some of the best and most reliable stocks on this stock market. And on top of that, another interesting thing about credit card debt is that as you pay it off, the benefits don't really truly help you too much. So, for instance, if you pay off your student loan debts, there's certain benefits that you get with that. If you pay off other types like auto insurance debt, debt, there's certain benefits that you get with that. But with credit cards, it's kind of more so of a it's kind of more so of a you should never have gotten to this place, so you're going to get punished for it. As I said earlier, if there is one mistake that I constantly see when it comes to people that are in the poor and the lower middle class, it's this: they find themselves trapped into the bondage of credit card debt because essentially they get stuck, unfortunately, using credit cards to pay for bills that all the bills that fall through the cracks. Okay, you got laid off, so this month you have to basically put your grocery bills on credit. Okay, you basically bought a car you cannot afford, so this month you have to put all your gas money essentially on credit. Okay, this month something your boiler broke in your house, and because you have no emergency fund, you either basically spend $5 or $6,000 to get your boiler fixed, so you put it on credit. When you should be using your emergency fund, everybody, for these particular types of emergencies. So once again, credit card debt is literally one of the banes of our existence here in North America. I hate it, and it's one of those kind of things that I honestly wish that a lot of people could simply avoid. So whether it's credit card subscription, sorry, so whether it's pay now, buy now, pay later kind of stuff, whether it's subscriptions that you forgot about, whether it's gym memberships, whatever it is, make sure you are setting your budget up to a point so that as you are getting out of debt, you are essentially investing your money into things that you can pay for right then and there, and you are buying things that you do not need to put on credit. Okay. So the next major financial mistake that I see that people in the poor and the lower middle class makes, everybody, is that they essentially use credit cards to supplement their living to pay for things that they cannot pay for on a regular basis. Next. The next major financial mistake that I see people typically in the poor and middle class make is that they don't track their spending and they don't have a budget. Now, I talked about this one a little bit earlier, everybody, and having a budget, once again, is just one of those things that I don't care whether if I have a client that comes in and makes $1 million a year or a client that comes in and makes $10,000 a year, I start with their budget, because if you're not tracking essentially what you are spending and how much you're making, you're never going to build any form of wealth. And what's interesting is this: living in the DC area and things like that, I come across some extremely wealthy people, extremely wealthy people. I've met people that I've done consultations with people that make over $1 million a month. But what's interesting is that I've also met people that make 75 to $100,000 a month, which in the DC area is not a lot of money. But it's weird because the people that make literally 50 to $75,000 a year, some of these individuals have a stronger financial footing and a stronger financial portfolio than some of my clients that make $1 million a year. And how is that possible? Because the people that only make 65 or $70,000, they have a budget. They live within their means, and every month they are essentially saving roughly 10 to 15% of their income. Whereas the people that make $1 million a year, they're essentially spending 1.2 or $1.3 million per year. And as a result, they literally have a negative of about 20 to 30% every time they get paid. So what does that mean? Something very simple. It does not matter how much money you make. It does not matter what your income is. It does not matter what your profession is. If you do stupid things with money, i.e., you are spending more money than you make, you are going to be poor. It does not matter whether you live in Beverly Hills, whether you live in the projects, whether you live in a Buckhead, or whether you live essentially in Brooklyn, Miami. It does not matter. If you do stupid things with your money, no matter how much money you make, your bad habits are going to catch up with you. If you don't believe me, take a look at any country music star that goes broke, any hockey player that goes broke. Income is not indicative, everybody, of wealth. Your habits are indicative of your wealth. And if you have bad habits, you're going to go poor. It's as simple as that. So, one of the major mistakes I find that people in the poor and lower middle class makes, everybody, is that in general they don't budget or track their spending. And I want you to track literally what you spend down to the dollar. And what's interesting is that eventually you get to a point, and this is something else that I kind of coach my clients on, is that eventually you get to a point where with your budget, because I'm not one of these kind of guys that says you should never live your life, have no fun, and just live in the cave and eat Lent and then basically just kind of count your pennies. I don't push that kind of budget. I tell people this: be extremely intentional about what you want to spend your money on, and be extremely brutal about what you cut your spending on. So, for instance, say you need a maid in your house because you're too busy to essentially clean your house. All right, cool, get a maid. Drop that $200 or $300 every month. You have somebody professionally come and clean your house. Cool, but make sure you are cutting $300 or $400 every month from instead of buying a car you can't afford, but buying a used car. Be extremely brutal in the things that you are essentially cutting your spending on, and be very intentional about what you are spending your money on. Let's say you're a single guy. You're in that phase of life where you're whining and dining women. All right, cool. If that's the case, then budget how much money you want to spend every month going on dates and things like that, and be very intentional and smart about who you date. I will say that as well, fellas. But then be brutally upfront about how much money you're spending every month to pay off your student loan debts. So with the budget, to me, it's a freedom tool that allows you to say, okay, cool, I'm going to spend a lot of money on this hobby of mine that I really enjoy, but I'm going to be brutally efficient as far as how much money I'm going to spend on cutting off my debt in this particular area. And that's essentially the way I advise my people to do their budgets, because that's the way you essentially live your life. And it's also the way that you essentially get out of debt. Okay. So, as I said earlier, one of the next major financial mistakes that the people in the poor and the lower middle class make is that they don't have a budget and they do not track their spending. This is a live Q&A session, everybody. So please drop your comments and everything. Please definitely send me some Q&As. If you have questions, I got answers. As I said earlier, I've been teaching finance for over 20 years now. I have an MBA in this subject, MBA in finance. I thoroughly enjoy teaching people the ministry of financial literacy. I thoroughly enjoy teaching people how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to build generational wealth. Okay. The next major financial mistake that people in the poor and the lower middle class makes, everybody, is that they focus on looking rich instead of actually being rich. Now, what do I mean by that? I remember when COVID was going around, I was working in the projects for this particular company that shall remain nameless. And as I was working in there, given what I was doing as a mechanical engineer, it was really interesting because some of the brokest and poorest people, I know this because we had conversations about their finances, are coming up in there wearing 15 and 20, wearing 20 and $25 Gucci mask and everything because this was COVID going on. I'm like, brother, you do realize that you can drop $25 and buy like 100 of them things on Amazon, and you're spending $25 per mask. Or I would see people coming up in there who essentially wearing $400 and $500 shoes, and I'm like, I do realize that your take on pay every month is about $1,200 a month, and you're dropping $500 and $600 for a pair of sneakers. Or I would see some good old boys showing up and essentially driving pickup trucks that are paying about $75,000 to $80,000 for the pickup trucks. And the thing that was crazy about it was I knew for a fact this person had a take on pay every year of about $50,000. Why? Because I did financial consultations with them. So what I mean by that, make sure, everybody, that you focus on being rich instead of actually looking rich. I'm currently in this credit card situation with 40K since leaving the military. What a creative ways to get out of this hole. Yeah, the God, that's a powerful thing, bro. That's a very interesting thing. I would say first off, there's a couple different things you can do. One thing you can do is get a second job and just throw all the money that you want toward that. That's one of the more extreme things I would say to do, because if you're married with a family, you got kids, or you got extenuating circumstances where you can't work a second or third job. I can understand the difficulty with that. Another thing is that you could essentially reach out to a lender and basically say, okay, cool. If I have $40,000 of credit card debt and the average interest rate is about 22%, will you write me a personal loan for $40,000, pay off this bank, and instead of me paying interest rate, pay off this credit card, instead of me paying $40,000 on 22% interest rate, this personal loan might give you $40,000 on 12% interest. So as a result of that, you're paying 10% interest over the course of a 5-year period. This could save you literally thousands of dollars. So walk into a credit union, walk into, if you were in the military, walk into a credit union, walk into a naval credit union, anything like that, and basically say, look, I got a $40,000 credit card loan that I can't pay off. And this is the interest rate. What interest rate will you guys give me if you basically write me a blank check and pay it off? That's something else you can do. Another thing you can do is this: there are different companies that essentially will advise you to stop paying the credit card. They will eventually step in at some point, send your credit card a bill. I'm sorry, send your credit card a check for the $40,000 that you owe, and then you end up on paying them $40,000 essentially over the course of like a 3 to 4 year period. And the thing about it is that the individuals that'll pay this off, they don't charge you interest on it. And the reason why they don't charge you interest on it is because they know for a fact that they basically owe that you basically owe them $40,000. So as a result of that, instead of you having to spend $600 or $700 per month to pay off this credit card loan, you now owe this private lender on about 750 to $800 every month to pay off that credit card. So that's another thing you can do. There's different creative things that you can do, as talked about. The guy reach out to me, DM me on the private note, and I can actually refer you to some companies that do that essentially. So it's not a credit card per se that you'd be paying at that point. Then you'd be paying the private lender. So you can go through credit unions, and you can also get debt consolidation loans as well that can do it. And the third, which are the best, is the last one I talked about, where essentially you can reach out to a company. They will advise you to stop paying the credit card essentially, so that it goes into default. Then at that point, the credit card says, okay, this guy cannot pay us back. And this other company will step in, write your credit card a $40,000 check, and then you end up owing that other company that wrote your credit card that $40,000 check. You end up paying them a significantly smaller amount. Instead of paying $1,500 a month, you only pay $500 a month, and you do this for essentially for like 36 months. And as long as you don't miss a payment, it allows you to essentially pay off that debt, and you pay significantly less in interest. Okay, so I've been there before, man. I keep your head up, brother. And then obviously it's the other one as well. Work a second or third job, and just 90% of the money you make, just throw it toward the credit card debt. I will say this: regardless of what you do, whether it's going to a debt consolidation loan, whether you go to a private lender, I get a HELOC. My mortgage rate is 2.8. Oh, as far as the HELOCs and everything, in regards to that, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's not a conversation. It's not a question I can just answer pretty much right now, because I don't know about your financial status. I don't know about your debt to income ratio. I don't know what part of the country you live in. I don't know essentially whether it's good for you to buy. Um, at the end of the day, it is really kind of there's so many different factors that go into it. I don't know if you live in an environment or in a neighborhood where the houses are appreciating. I don't know if you live in an environment where everybody's moving out, so your house is going to start depreciating. I don't know what your income level is. There's a lot of different things. The guy that I would have to unpack that to thoroughly answer that question. Okay, so yep. Like I say this though, being a veteran, you're going to get better interest rates than most civilians will. Okay, so yeah, privately reach out to me and I'll see what I can do. Okay, any other questions you got, man? But in regards to that credit card situation, walk into a credit union to see if they can offer you a better rate, particularly with you being a veteran. That's something that you will qualify for. A lot of civilians won't. And then also, like I said, it's a debt consolidation thing, and then you can get another, or you can get another job. And also, you can go the route of simply not paying back the credit card, and then you'll have other companies reach out to you and say they'll pay off your credit card debt, and you just have to pay them. And instead of you having a 22% interest rate on a $40,000 loan, you'll have a 12% interest rate on $2,000 loan. $10. I appreciate that. Thank you, the God. Thank you, man. By the way, what branch did you serve in? What branch did you serve in? Army, Navy, Marines? Either one. Thank you for your service, Army. Oh, good. Me and the Green Team. I love it. My parents were in the U.S. Army 23 years. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. If you did combat, definitely. If you're a veteran, you did combat. I hope you are going for your full benefits. Hope you get 100%, man. So yeah. Yeah, but this was the wild thing. So going back to my story about working in the hood and everything, I was seeing cats showing up. I knew I had a take home pay of about $1,000 a month, wearing 350 and $400 Jordans from like the 80s and throwback stuff and throwback and making a rant at the club and bottle service every weekend and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, the math ain't mathing, brother. If you bringing home a take home pay after your bills of $1,000 a month, why are you wasting all your money essentially on garbage? And it wasn't just the brothers either. I mean, once again, the environment I was working in, I was seeing white gentlemen walk in there driving their big pickup trucks and everything like that, 70, $80,000, $70,000, $80,000 pickup trucks, and these guys had to take on pay of less than $40,000 a year, and their credit was horrible, and so was and the amount of money they were making was also low because I did financial consultations with them. So these individuals were essentially, whether they were black or white, they were trying to look rich instead of actually being rich. And what's so friggin' funny to me was I was working also with other people that were like the secretaries, like the financial side of what we were doing for the particular business I was working with and running at the time. And these women essentially drove 7 and 8-year-old Toyota Corollas. One lady drove a 15-year-old Ford Focus, and you would never believe it, but they literally were stacking over $10,000 to $15,000 every month, just saving their money and investing into the right stocks and stuff like that. So the people that quote unquote looked the wealthiest were the brokest, and the people that looked the most average made the most money. And there's a parable to that because that's generally the way that it works. It does not matter whether you're in the hood, whether you're in the Palisades, whether you're in the projects, whether you're in Beverly Hills, whether you're in Buckhead, whether you're in Bankhead, whether you're in Brickell, whether you're in Opelika, whether in the south side of Chicago, whether you're on the north side, it doesn't matter. The people, generally speaking, that look the most average, they're wearing the average t-shirts that you can buy from Costco. They're wearing the jeans you buy from Walmart. Those are the individuals who, generally speaking, are the wealthiest. But the people you see making it rain every weekend, basically flossing it, just throwing up money in there, flossing everything on Instagram. The individuals that you see wearing the flyest shoes, the nicest purses, the nicest Birkin bags, the nicest red bottoms, driving the biggest trucks, driving the nicest cars. Those generally speaking are the poorest. But the individuals, once again, that are average, that live an average lifestyle and that very rarely brag about their money. I've seen it time and time again. Those are the wealthiest. And the next major mistake that the poor and the lower middle class makes is that they try to look rich instead of actually being rich. Next, the next major financial mistake that I noticed from all my consultations that I've done with people that are in the poor and the lower middle class, everybody, is that they avoid, delay, or just flat out don't invest their money. This one absolutely breaks my heart because as an African American, this is the one that I've kind of seen the hardest and the most in my lifetime with some of the people who look like me. And the reason why is very simple. My grandparents, my great grandparents, to some extent my own parents, they were never taught the importance of compounding interest until significantly later life, or in my grandparents' case, they were never ever taught the importance of compounding interest. In other words, they spent their entire life working really, really hard. But when it came to actually investing the money into ETFs, into exchange traded funds, into real estate investment trusts, into the stock market, into index funds, into mutual funds, they never were taught exactly the importance of doing it or why you should even do it to begin with. So as a result, they lost literally millions of dollars over a 40-year working lifetime by not harnessing the power of compounding interest. It's sad when I see a person that's worked once again the hard their entire life, they're in their 50s, and they say, Chris, where should I start investing my money? I've never invested my whole life. Because that individual, if they had started investing at 18, literally as low as $250 a month would have been a millionaire by the time they hit 50. But because they didn't know, they didn't know. And as a result of that, one of the major issues that I see with the poor and lower middle class in regards to financial literacy is that they do not understand and were never taught the power of compound interest and investing early. Once again, if you start investing $250 at 18 years old, you will have more money at 60 years old than a person that invests $1,000 a month at 50 when they turn 60. At the end of the day, everybody, financial literacy is one of the things that has been used to keep certain communities poor, and the lack thereof is one of the things that is being used even still to this day. That's the reason why you don't hear about things like the 4% rule in school. You don't hear about things essentially like compounding interest, or why an index fund is superior to a mutual fund, or why a dynasty trust should be in every community in America. Because that's the kind of knowledge that if you did that kind of stuff, it would literally change the very fabric of how this country operates, because it'll allow people who literally are in their 20s to set up a plan so they can retire in their late 30s and 40s and still have health care. Because we were black, American ancestors worked till the day they died, and mentally was passed on to the most of us. Yep, exactly. That mentality. Like, it's actually interesting because I know even growing up, like in a lot of black churches, a lot of the things that we were taught was money is the root of all evil. But if you actually read the Bible, it doesn't say it. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. So what's that telling us? We were essentially taught to hate the people that are wealthy. We were essentially taught to be extremely hard workers and resilient, but not to work, but not to understand the power of compound interest. I never ever in my life heard anybody ever talk about being a 45-year-old black man that retires from corporate America. I never heard that. In fact, I didn't start hearing that kind of stuff until I myself was about 35, and I started meeting black folks that was doing that kind of stuff. I never ever heard in my life once again anybody saying retire. Okay, I'm going to completely walk away from corporate America at 49 or 50 because I've already hit my four. I've already hit the 4% rule for my money. I never heard that kind of stuff growing up. I will say this though, now that I know exactly what those concepts talk about, my sons are going to absolutely know that stuff, and neither one, and they're not even 4 years old yet. So that's what it is, everybody. Knowledge is power. Now that we are starting to learn these kind of things, and it's starting to get more ubiquitous because you got guys like me on social media and on Facebook pushing this kind of stuff, it's allowing our communities and people who look like us and people who don't look like us essentially change the entire way capitalism works. A century ago, the idea that you could be a brother that lived in the Jim Crow South making millions of dollars and essentially picking and choosing what companies you wanted to work for was completely unheard of. Today, if you live in parts of America that are the Jim Crow South, the idea that you have to stay in the environment you grew up in and never take a job outside the county or the town that you live in is literally ludicrous, and the people will laugh at you if you said that. What does that mean? Because we now have more knowledge about how you can pick a career, what kind of career you can pick, how you can invest your money, where you can live, what country you can live in. It gives you better options. And the 21st century is going to belong to people who understand how to exercise those options. My sons, my wife, my kids, anybody listen to Financipation, I'm teaching you essentially how to exercise those options in regards to where you want to live and what you want to do with your life. And everybody it is completely up to you about how you want to take this knowledge. Because at the end of the day, there is no excuse anymore for being financially illiterate. There's no excuse anymore for not having a budget. There's no excuse for spending every dime that you have, making it rain at the club and doing dumb stuff with your money and flossing and balling there out of control. And then coming home and crying because you got a mountain of credit card debt and bills you got to pay. You have no idea how to do it. There's no excuse for that kind of garbage anymore. And another thing that's pretty cool about it, 12 years ago, when I first kind of got on my own personal financial journey, I ain't see nobody that looked like me or Irish Journey or Earn Your Leisure. I ain't seen nobody like that on social media. Now you can find exactly who you're looking for, and they can preach a message of financial literacy depending on what it is that depending on how you're trying to go. If you want to go the stock market route, which is the route that I push, and the entrepreneurship route, which is the route that I push, cool. You can look into Financipation. If you want to get into forex trading and day trading, which I highly advise you to not do, by the way, it's a terrible investment and an absolute direct backdoor way to bankruptcy. But if you want to find that kind of stuff, you can find guys on social media selling you their books and teaching you how to basically make yourself go broke. You can find all that kind of stuff. If you're more of a real estate type and you believe in nothing down real estate, I don't advise you do that. I do not advise you to do that either. But you're gonna find that type as well. So there's no excuse today, everybody, in 2025 to be financially illiterate. And once again, if you don't know what to do with the money that you have, and you have no idea what the stock market is, how to make millions of dollars off of it, perfect. You are in the right place. Because here at Financipation, I'm literally teaching you how to do all that stuff. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about tonight in this particular podcast, in this particular live session, is the fact that one of the major financial hurdles that are keeping the poor and the lower middle class, poor and lower middle class, that they have a job that does not require any skills for growth. So I spent a period of my life working in the construction industry. And one of the things that would blow my mind when I got to the construction industry was I would see guys that had been in America their entire life, right? They were 30, 40, 35, 40, and they would complain about immigrants who came to this country who couldn't even speak English and basically taking their job. And their job consisted of picking up trash on the construction site. Now, the reason why that would always kind of rub me the wrong way, because I was like, dude, you've been in this country for 40 years and you're competing with a guy who doesn't even speak English for your job, and you're mad that they potentially are outworking you. I say that to say this. If you rely on a low skill job or a job that essentially is not allowing you, or a job essentially that requires pretty much no prerequisites, you probably are in the wrong field. And it's probably time that you should essentially step your game up and get more skills. If you are essentially competing against teenagers because you're picking up trash at McDonald's or you're sweeping a floor at Burger King and you're competing against teenagers and you're a 35 or 40-year-old man, it's probably time you go back to grad school, you go back to school, you go back to trade school, you join the military, you do something different, because at the end of the day, everybody, in the 21st century, you need a skill. There are millions of people that are literally dying to get into this country every day. And guess what? When those people get here, they're willing to take any job. They're willing to do anything they possibly can so they don't have to go back to the country that they came from. I married an immigrant. I see the immigrant struggle. I know how hard they have to work to get to this country. And they appreciate the things that they get. So as a result of that, if you are if you are in the lower middle class, everyone, you need to basically figure out a way to start making more money, to increase your skill set, to get more certifications, to basically to possibly learn a trade, to possibly become a police officer, to possibly join a trade hall, to possibly join the military. You have to figure out different ways to make money that are you have to figure out different ways to make more money in the industry that you're in. I'll use myself as an example. When I got into engineering, I said, okay, what are all the certifications that engineers who make the most money need to get? And then it got to the point where I had kind of completely maxed out what I could do in that aspect of engineering. So I went to a different aspect of engineering. And with that different aspect of engineering, I said, okay, cool. What are all the steps I need to do to make the most possible money in this particular career field? And when I did that, I said, okay, cool. What's the next steps? When I went to the next portion of my career, I figured, okay, what are the next steps? What are all the certifications I need to get so I can make the most possible money in this particular skill set in this particular field? And as a result of that, it got to the point where no matter where I went, whether it was engineering, whether it was finance, whether it was construction, whatever it was, I essentially could command the highest possible salaries that you can make in that particular field. And guess what? I was not competing against guys that didn't speak English, or high school juniors, or people that had just learned to drive. And that's my advice to anybody that's poor, or in the lower middle class. You have got to stop being dependent on one low paying, no skill type of job. If you're working at McDonald's today, cool. Try to be the manager at McDonald's. If you're working at Wendy's today, cool. Stack your paper, get to a point where you can join the military, join the Marines, or you can possibly become a police officer, or you can possibly go to college, whatever it is, or you can possibly join a trade hall. And if you do learn that blue collar trade, cool. Don't be comfortable just being a low level electrician. Become a master electrician. To become an engineer, cool. Don't be comfortable just basically being an engineer. Become a project leader. Become a project lead. Get your professional engineering license. Do take the thing to the highest possible level. If you go in the finance community, perfect, cool. Don't just be comfortable being a sales floor analyst or working at a local bank. Instead, get your Series 7 license so you can start your own financial practice or start your own bank. Regardless of what you do, everybody, regardless of what career field you try to go into, become the very, very best version of yourself in that career, and become the most financially lucrative version of that career. Because I can tell you right now, it is significantly easier to build wealth when you're making 250, 150, $200,000 a year when you're making 25 or $30,000 a year. It's as simple as that. Once again, please support your content creators. Hit that dollar sign. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. I drop weekly content. Start dropping it probably on Tuesdays or Thursdays every week, as we start dropping more of our content. But once again, it's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. Here at Financial Patience, we teach you how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to build generational wealth. Before I bounce, by all means, everybody continue to ask me questions. Thank you to God. I appreciate that. Thank you, Reba, Esther, Paul, for your contribution. Thank you, the God, for your contribution as well. Please support your content creators. You can support me Cash App, CHRSP485, or you can even simpler, even easier. Just go ahead and hit that dollar sign below, and support your content creators. Okay, we definitely appreciate it. And fire your questions away. Okay, fire your questions away. As I said earlier, one of the things I really love the most about financiation and just about financial leadership is that, and literacy is that I have literally seen it just change the way people live their lives in regards to how people talk to them, in regards to the stuff that they take, the jobs they take, and the career paths that they're in. So, um, this is definitely something that I thoroughly enjoy doing, and I thoroughly enjoy just kind of helping people become the very best versions of themselves. And all of us, I don't care whether you're Asian, Black, white, Hispanic, Christian, Jew, Muslim, is irrelevant. All of us essentially want to be in a situation of life where we can afford the things we want to afford, go to places we want to go, eat the kind of food we want to eat, wear the kind of clothes we want to wear, and live in the kind of environments we want to live in safely. And if you're financially literate, you have money, you can do that. Okay. All right. So going once, going twice. Anybody have any else? Is anyone else have any questions for me? All right, once again, before I bounce, this is your boy Chris. Here at Financial Patient, I teach you how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to build generational wealth, how to financially emancipate yourself from generational poverty. Please check out my financial blog, my financial blog, Financipation. Check me out on Instagram, the real underscore Financipation. Check me out on TikTok, Financipation. And additionally, everybody, once again, I have some e-products that are out here in regards to scholarships, in regards to fitness programs. I'm gonna be dropping a financial masterclass e-product soon. I'm actually working on that. And yeah, thank you for subscribing. It's your boy Chris. I'm out. Peace. Peace.